burnt siennas here to put in some shadow areas here on this old post here. Hi everyone, welcome back into the channel, welcome back into our studio. Today what I'm going to do is paint the American Kestrel with you. I've had a lot of requests. This is actually a very popular bird, and I've painted him a couple times. Both those paintings are sold, so I didn't have any samples here to show you what I did before. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him in a landscape here. So this is 16 inches this way, and it's about 23 inches or so this way. But you can, shorten him down. I thought about maybe even putting him on a square, which would be nice. But I'm going to put a little bit of a landscape behind him. This is the reference photo that I have up here. I'm blowing it up on my big monitor. You know about that. Those of you that are in our memberships, part of our memberships, I'll put the my ideas of the painting. I'll put that reference photo that I'm using that I got from Adobe Stock, and I'll put a photo of the finished painting and also my drawing that I did off of this. And so what I do is I take that photo and I kind of take some ideas from it, and I start some of the sketching and stuff off of that. And I show you some of the ways in which I sketch in other videos. We'll post some more videos for you guys that are learning how to draw, but there's a lot of videos on YouTube on how to draw. But let's get going. Okay, so I prepped the board with just some what we call our canvas, with canvas prep medium by Heritage MultiMedia. These are the Heritage paints, and all they are pure acrylic, and I just squirt them out here. This is enough to do several paintings, so which I'm going to be filming today. And this is my favorite YouTube palette here. I have two additions to it, which is the medium white and the medium beige, which are two colors that are going to work into the background idea here for the landscape really well. The rest of the colors here, I'll put all of the colors that I use and the list of the mediums and everything in the video description. So look down to the video description. You'll see all kinds of links to the value scale that I show here, where you can go download that for free, and then also link to all the colors and stuff that I use. Okay, all right, let's get going. So I'm going to take a large brush here. This is a 2-inch fusion brush, and I'm going to use some water. For my mediums out here I'll be painting with today, I'll be using water. Nice dirty water here, by the way. Water. This is the open medium by Diarylide, and then I have my extender medium, which is a little blue cast from some of the last landscapes I did. It doesn't hurt anything. But I'm just going to take some water here, and I'm going to take a pretty good dollop of my medium white, which I love the medium white because it is really a toned yellow. And the American Kestrel sits out here where we live out in Nebraska, in what's called the shortgrass prairie. A lot of prairie, a lot of rolling hills, and he's out here, and he's quite a few areas. And this is actually almost life size. He's not very big. He's a little bigger than this, but they are one of the smaller birds of prey. So what I'm going to do is just use some water, and I'm going to do this very impressionistically. I love the impressionism of paintings and brush strokes and stuff. I used to be a realist. Now I just love impressionism. And so I'm going to let some of that impressionism come out. And I'm not going to do perfect strokes of anything. I want just that medium white to kind of blend into my white that I have there. Some of my sketch marks and stuff here will cover up. And if you get too much, you can just back it out of your sketch here like this, and you can take out as much as you want. But I'm going to be painting opaque, so all of this is going to cover up. Now up here into the sky, one of the things you'll see in the reference photos and stuff that I use is I love the gray skies, and that we can get out here. And so it's going to be, I'm going to take a violet, so I'm just going to take some Phthalo Blue, a little bit of violet into it, and add a little bit of the tiny bit of the medium, of the burnt sienna. Then I'll lighten this up with some water here, thin it out here. I love grays. So, and you start to read the color. Like this is still a little bit greenish here, so maybe a bit more of burnt sienna, which is a toned orange, even a touch of the red. And you'll see immediately that'll start to gray that out a bit. And I love just the grays that can come from these colors. And that's a beautiful light kind of sky gray here. I like to start them up somewhere around 7 or 8. Though that's an 8, so I put the little mark there. You can see it disappears on the 8, so it's an 8, which means it'll dry to a 7, which we might want to have it a bit lighter along the horizon line. But it'll work fine for where I want right in there. And I'm going to do this. I'm just going to wipe this through. I'm going to keep this very impressionistic back through here, and which is going to keep it soft. Let's take a little medium white and a little more white. Let's lighten this up. Step off to the side so you can see the change in value. That's very important. And let's just put a stroke or two of that color right along that edge. Now, some of my big brush comes off here a little dirty. This is why I like it, because you get this using the big brush like this and not mixing too well, because you get some of these little, what do I say, expressions of color, and I love that. So there we have the sky going down into the mountains here. It's going to help you a lot with what we call atmospheric perspective of some of that area receding. Now, before we go too far, we should, paint some of the interest into the bird, because he's going to set it, and it'll tell us just how light and dark we can go here when we make these back hills. But we can do a little bit. We can do a little. While I have this color, I'm going to take some more burnt sienna to this. Maybe I love burnt sienna greens into the colors, blues, but we'll keep it all really soft. Let's use some of that medium white because that's into our background. And so we'll keep this really soft. Maybe, with atmospherics, objects that go into the back become more violet. So we can actually head this just a touch violet here. So see, it's a real soft, dirty color here. And we can thin this out. You could use water. You could use a little extender. I don't use the open medium until I start to get a bit more of a bit more thicker paint on. Now, that's too dark. You can really see here, and I should have looked at, here was my light, here's my dark, so I really need to lighten this up. I need to get these close in value, and so there will be the difference, and that's a little closer, a little better in value here. So I'm just going to back some of that off, and this is what I like to do. I back some of that off, and see, what we're going to do is make these impressions back here of some hills, lines, hills and stuff back here, of what that receding area is going to be like here. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'll push the sky back in up against that. But I'm going to make some receding areas, some gray areas. I'll redo that sky in just a second here. But I want this. See the dirty brush, the casual nature that comes out, and I will make small touches, because that's going to give the viewer here the idea that that's little hills and little stuff going on back there. Now, the other thing to do when you're putting up a receding area like this and doing this is you have to decide your light source. And so from my reference and stuff, the light is coming in here on the Kestrel on the left to right. So this side is in shadow. And so I want to do basically the same types of things here with my hills. So I'm going to take a bit more of a dirty violet here, blue violet, just slightly darker, a little cooler here. And I'll use this onto the right sides here to suggest light and shadow here into my landscape back here. So I'll use this back like that. And so any place that I want to, have the shadow. So light will hit here, shadow will hit to the right side. To the right, shadow hits the right side, light to the left side. I'm going to go just a touch more of a blue, and this is what I like to play through the colors here. It's not actually play, it's work my lights and my darks and stuff through the colors here as I build, when you're going to have this type of landscape, working through your colors several times, slightly different tones. See, they're all very soft, but slightly different in tones, and this helps you with the interest to your landscape. So see, I'll push this color through, through here like this. Now I hit a bit of that mountain, and that's great because it'll take some of that color right up into the sky here, and which I like. I like that harmony that comes from traveling colors. Dirty colors in your brush do great things. So that's working out pretty good there. Let's lighten that, maybe just a little bit different blue. Push that into the brush here. Use some small marks here to carry that color through, just like that. So you see, you get a nice receding area. And if I want it to recede even more back here, I'll take that color right into my back of my landscape, the ground back there. So let's just kind of work those two colors slightly together here, just a bit like this. And you'll see that that land here, as it's coming now off to this side here, will really start to recede back. And so let's just push some ideas. See, it's barely visible. Now you got to remember the acrylics will dry a little darker here, and it's very barely visible, and that's what you want. Barely see the difference here. Let's put a bit of the shadow right in there, so we have a bit of our light and shadow lines here. Idea of it. You're painting, you're painting basically the whisper here, the whisper of the colors there, like that. And that's going to give you some wonderful depth here to the painting when we get done. Now, as we come forward, let's pick up a bit of our warmer yellow. Let's even pick up some of the beige. I love the colors of the beige. I'm going to add a little extender to this, not to keep it wet. Now, the extender keeps the colors wet for a long time. But the other thing it does is it causes my brush to slide over the surface really easy, and which is one of the things I want it to do right in here. See, I like this. You know, I look for this kind of stuff where I get this kind of what I call granulation, the sliding. The colors slide really easy. And I'll break up, if I feel the stroke is too long, I'll break it up just a bit. But I'm going to push some of this color in here. I'm going to be pushing a lot of colors back here. Now back here is going to be kind of the shadow side, or I'll put a hill in here or something to get a shadow, which will help. And I'm planning that so that it helps push the Kestrel forward here. Okay, so we might, if that's going to be the shadow side, we might hit just a bit of our violet, which helps us shadow. Now let's not go that dark. Let's grab some of this right into that. But see, the violet cool it down, cools it, darkens it just a bit here. And that's going to be a beautiful color coming up here to the front. Now those are too long of strokes, too distracting of a strokes because they're too long here. So let me just model some of this other color in here and just break those up. You don't want to have huge, long, and there I just did it again. Almost took another one here. And just want to break those up. Let's get back to some of our lights, some of our yellows, and we'll hit some of the edges here. So when I work something like this, and then we'll go into the shadows, I want to bring the color a little bit more colorful here, a little bit more yellow, more violets as I go back into those dirty grays of the blue in the sky. Now, and we might brighten up the sky a little bit. We might put in some clouds, but I want to start it out gray. I start out everything a real soft gray. Now to bring these together, I'm going to rinse those colors out of my brush. I'm just going to use some water in my brush and watch what happens. See? And so I'll move those colors and some of these tones working together, which is going to help us, you know, get kind of, it doesn't blend as much as what I call incorporates the colors together here. And if you leave some of the, what we call the strokes like this, okay, so even if I lift back like this and I create that little movement of light, do you see that right back through there? That creates what we call the linear perspective. It gives me a small line of color, creates what we call linear perspective, or a small line of you know, a different color. And so, and then I can come back and restate some small little hills and stuff in here if I want. But I leave that linear, that beautiful linear perspective back through there, and that helps. that helps with the depth. So when you set up one like a foreground area and then you set up a background area, one of the easiest ways then to bring those together. Okay, I kind of like the light in the front, like the warm yellows there. As a matter of fact, let's just do this. Let's even just take a bit more of our warm yellow that's going to come right up here into the front, some yellow oxide. Right up here, that's going to come into the front when we're going to do some of the prairie grasses right up here around the kestrel here, so you can see all that. Now I'll just take my brush. Now this is a 1-inch, I love my 1-inch fusion brush, and I'll just take some water in it and I'll start running the what we call the linear lines, the linear perspective of the lines here. I'll rinse that color out. I'll come to the back here and do that back here, you see, and that starts to get some of that, especially if you're painting a prairie, it starts getting some of that depth, and now you're going from a brighter yellow back here to some violets. It doesn't mean you can't have some of these lovely little violets and little hills and stuff back here, and you know, how much we're going to have back there, I don't know yet. I'm going to paint the bird before I do anything really dramatic back up through here, but this will give me an idea of looking at some of the color. And maybe right up in through here, as in a landscape, when you're painting like this and you're painting for this atmospheric perspective and setting stuff back, darker colors belong up here into the front. So as I'm going to paint some of these prairie grasses and everything like this, I'm just going to do this. Just scrub this around for right now. It creates a lot of interest. And sometimes I do this now, sometimes I do the kestrel first. I know the kestrel is going to have a lot of interest in it, so I'm not too worried. But let's just thin this out and push a little bit of color right in here like this. Leave some of this movement. Sometimes I'll take my dirty paper towel that I have here with a lot of water in it and just kind of move that through. I want to keep some of this movement though, and the darker color, because the darker color kind of moves and advances there. Now, I want to also remove some of this color from the edge. That keeps that nice impressionistic kind of look, that it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect here. So that works pretty nice. Let's take some of that. Yeah, let's use a little extender. And just something to cause my brush to slide, and I don't want it to be super opaque here. We'll push some of that around. See, I like this. Here, I'm going to leave some of that. We're going to put a lot of brush and everything over here. Let's let it fade out over here. Let's just use our dirty paper towel from what we have so far. We'll just push that around. It's a great way to do it really quick. It's almost like a little watercolor, you know, as you're setting something in there. But we're setting in an area here that's going to draw the viewer's attention right into here. And you know, that will pull everything we do right into there. So that'll work. We'll keep those darks. You know, we might have a few little verticals here that are going to be the grasses, so you can come in and add a few little marks. Just move your brush around, small marks. You can have a few horizontals, but a few verticals like this will help you later on when we start to do some of the grasses here. And they get smaller and smaller as they go back here. Smaller and smaller because the grasses, they'll be bigger here, and then the grasses get smaller and smaller as they go back. So just a little bit of movement like this. That's all you want. You're constantly, as an artist, what you're doing is you're constantly thinking of, of atmospheric perspective, making my colors more like the background, adding more violets and stuff into a receding line of color. And then also linear perspective of the larger getting smaller and stuff going into the back there. All of that works. Now let's just take a real soft light, some of this yellow, brownish yellow here off to this side, and we'll just hit an idea of some of the little bit of the lights or light plane here coming up this side. Try to make them all a little different. It's very easy for me. I'm definitely a right brain or left brain painter, and I tend to make everything all exactly the same. So I'll make two of them exactly the same. So I try not to do that. Let's take a little warmer. So what I'm doing just for myself right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. Is maybe in fact maybe even a little Hansa Yellow there. Brighter, warmer, light color that is going to definitely say light side, shadow side here as it's working through some of this here. So we're going to do it very impressionistically, but this will help it. And let's just push back just a bit, a little back and forth like this. Okay, it's not done by any sense or means. This is just to help us give a background for our Kestrel. We'll paint the Kestrel. Then the Kestrel, how much dark and contrast we put on the Kestrel will then tell us how much we can work into our background. So we're going to do a lot more. This is just what I call the foundation, okay? So don't get wrapped up in a whole bunch of work on this background because we got a lot to do on the bird. Let's go in and let's work the Kestrel here for a little bit, and many times, as a matter of fact, let me just see if we can bring in the cameras just a bit more here. And let's work the Kestrel. Now you see, when you're working up close, this is what makes a beautiful, landscape. By doing this, you get all of this movement back through there. Do you see all that? Okay, so it makes it really, really nice. Here, let's back that out just a bit more, guys, so we can get just a bit of the, so they can see just a bit more of the landscape that goes with it, so it relates with it. Okay, into the Kestrel, when you're going to paint the birds, I do them a lot of different ways. One of the things that I do like to do is I like to set up an undertone first. So I'm going to take an old brush. This is an old number 6. I'm going to use, the Kestrel has a lot of oranges in it. So I'm going to set up an orange with Diarylide and Naphthol Red Light, and then some burnt sienna here to model in to change this a bit. This will be the undertone that we'll pick up here underneath the wing, and I'll just do some I don't want to make like too many strokes. I'm going to paint this very impressionistically, so I want to have a lot of brush movement that's associated with this here. Let's just lighten that, and right over here with some of the dirty light grays from our palette here, and we'll put a few marks here. And so you'll see me use the brush flat. I'll use it here onto its edge. What I don't want to do is make marks that you can perceive as strokes, and so I want to vary it. Let's tap into some of this richer color here and put a little bit of that mark. Take that off the edge. Take off its edges so you can't really find the stroke. Does that make sense? That's what I'm doing. Let's go over to a bit more Diarylide here. Right down here like this. Let's pull down. Put a bit of that Diarylide underneath that. So those colors. These will soften out, but this will be the undercolor of it here. And as we get back up here, what we're basically going to do is grade it. So we take these colors here right towards our sky. Now this is a little bit dry over here, so I'm just going to add some water to it. It doesn't have to be, see the water reconstituted. See how it softens it out? So basically, as you're painting the back, see how the colors get soft here on the Kestrel to the back? So it actually makes them more atmospheric. So if I want an area of the Kestrel to recede, I actually add any of the grays or anything that are back here that takes that color back there. Bringing it more full-bodied color brings it forward, okay? So if I want to paint like the back edge of something, or maybe back here like the back of the color of his tail might come in here. So I'll just lightly fracture the edge so it's not a perfect edge. It just kind of disappears a bit, and put that color there, and that part of his tail will recede. Then I'll take a little water, a little extra color right here. We'll drop this right into here and see the next part of his tail advances. So this comes up in front of that. And that's just using that same thing of atmospheric perspective. So it's something, so when, especially whether I'm painting a bird or whatever it is, if it's their landscape, the landscape controls your technique, okay? Make sure you remember that. No matter what your reference photo may say, the landscape will control your technique, so you can make some receding areas, some advancing areas here. Okay, so I may come in right into here. I might even take some of my nice burnt sienna, and let's just add a bit of the violets and greens to that, just to power that up a bit more. Right into here, and a little bit darker, just a little bit more than what I actually see on the reference photo of the Kestrel. And we'll put a touch of that in because see how much more that advances off of that color here. It's so much different than what the color was that I used in the back of my landscape that it's pulling it forward here. And that's what I want, okay? All right. So we're doing that. Now as we come this way, we're going to go eventually to white, but let's go right here to a medium white, which is a yellowed white. And we'll take some of our oranges here right into that. We'll make a real soft, that's a real soft color here. That will be the front because it goes from the oranges here up into the light colors. And let's add just a few marks of that around. And change it. Maybe a bit darker right here where there's a break in his body between his two powerful legs. He's a bird of prey, so he's got these powerful, powerful legs like a hawk does. There, we'll add a bit there. Warmer yellow lights. Let's get up towards the lights. So right in here, I'm about a value 8 or so. It'll a little bit lighter than that. It looks like a 9, but it'll dry down to about an 8. And let's take a look at what that is. So see, that's basically the value there of my my ground line right here. So if I want the bird to advance a little bit more, which I'm going to want to, it advances through the dark. But if I want to advance through the light, I either have to darken the background here, which I probably will a little bit, or lighten my light strike right there on the Kestrel, which I'll just step off to the side with the color in my brush, add a bit of white, and let's take a look at that, lightening that up just a bit more. And that's a nice color for undertone. It's up there definitely as a 9. It's lighter, it's advancing a little bit, but if I want to make that advance even more, which I will, what I have to do is just take some of these softer gray colors that will go a touch darker here. A little green, a little burnt sienna, just as a wash right here. Let's go a little darker here. Even some of the Kestrel colors, but a little green stuff right into it. And right up here where that Kestrel is, right into this area, I have to, in his breast area right there, I have to make sure that I get a little more color there, darker color in that area, as I'm going to be painting basically the landscape there. I have to make sure I get just a touch more. Let's get a bit more green into that. So as I put that color in there, see, I'm darkening it down ever so slightly right in there. And you can just pick out one little area of this. We're impressionistic painting. Maybe make a few little horizontals there. But that'll darken that down, and see, that starts to advance it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play, and let's go just a touch lighter here. Right up here. A touch lighter. Maybe a touch warmer with some of that yellow, good warm yellow. It's not pure white. It's close. You can see it here. It's close, but it's not pure white. Let's take a look at that and see. Now he advances even more right there. So we'll be looking at that, just how much I want him to advance, and make sure you look at that. But you can really see the advancing here through the dark, can't you? Okay, so the dark, whenever you set up the light back here, the contrast color is the dark. So the dark, most comes forward. So if you really want to bring your bird forward, or anything in that landscape, those of you that, especially those of you that have studied online in my online classes and stuff, I'm always telling you, get this back. Don't get those dark colors here, because you compress it. You actually bring the front of the back of the painting forward. So you want to keep those darks dark. Okay, so we'll do that. Let's just let's break that up just a bit with some of this orange color right there. I like to, so I don't see marks. I don't want to see strokes in him. I want to paint him very impressionistically, and I want to keep everything soft. Let's go here. We'll just leave that color in there, and let's go to a really dark kind of blue-gray, almost black. You get beautiful colors of blacks, greens, blues, violets, burnt siennas here. And especially if you take them over towards the purples with a lot of that phthalo blue. And the red violet here. But let's start out something like this because I want some of this to be a little bit bluer. And we'll just start this little band right here that's there. There's one that's going to come underneath his eye here. And notice I turn my brush to use different edges of it so I don't constantly keep making the same mark of color. So we got that one there. Let's widen that out just a bit. Little highs and lows. Let's put just a touch of it here that's on the back, according to the reference photo. And I have him blown up really big. Those of you that follow me, I put a 42-inch 4K monitor right here, and I blow them all up, and it's like looking at them in real life. You know, I love painting from that thing because I can see tones so clear. Let's take some of this. Let's add a little extender to this. So the brush slides pretty easy. And let's start some of the marks here. And see, just short marks like this. He's going to be all spotted up. So we're going to just do some marks as opposed, and put some color areas as opposed to, like you see me doing so many other birds, paint all these individual feathers here. We'll go back and forth. We'll revisit this dark, but I just want to start getting some of those darker tones in there so I can see them. There'll be some, you know, these are his primaries that are right here. He has another wing feather that's going to come over here. I kind of lost it, so I get the opportunity to redraw it again. But that light color is going to come this way. This will come out like that. I'm just going to blur that out a bit, some of those tones. And what's really nice about Impressionism when we do this is you can take this tone and blur it out, and it looks completely different than adding white. See, sometimes adding white to a color makes it look a little more cloudy, gives you a different look than adding this to it, okay, or just blurring it out. So I'll do both, but I like to blur out. Now, let's come right over here. We'll start some blue. Here's some of my light blue. He is more of a violet, so I'm going to add some violet to this. Some of his blue areas are more of a blue violet, so I'll add some violet, some red violet to this. Start creating that. If I want this to gray down, I grab burnt sienna. And see the beautiful gray that's going to come immediately right into here, which is real close to his colors. I want a gray just a touch too much. So we'll play right around in here with these kinds of tones here, because I'll do all kinds of tones. Let's put a bit of that. Yeah, see, it's just a little lighter than our other one there. We'll put a little mark there, maybe a bit of it. Now, when you're doing this, I'm just using the chisel, and it's not it's not much of a chisel. Look at that. Look at the brush, how old it is and frayed out. That's what I like. See, because it doesn't make it perfect. It doesn't make a perfect chisel mark. And I'll just kind of push back and forth a little bit like that. And I start looking for areas I might see a little bit of this tone, there's a touch right up there into his beak here. Some of this tone, let's thin it out, some extender. Change it, model it up here a bit. Some of this might show up here into his wings here like this. And some of this might come right up in here. Pull down maybe a bit. Change the brush, the movement that you do there. Maybe push it around a bit. This is your first look. We're putting in some of these colors, your first look here. Constantly step back and take a look. Is he advancing? So those of you that paint with me all the time, that's camera 1. It sits at 8 feet. And yeah, you can see that he's advancing at 8 feet. That's what I paint most of my paintings for, is when they sit in galleries and stuff, they sit, that you look at them at 8 feet. So I have right here, monitor here and a monitor there, monitor there, monitor there, where I can see you know what the painting looks like from the different camera angles at 8 feet and 3 feet. If you don't have that, you're painting an easel, get up, step back into the room and take a look at it. Okay, that always will give you a different perspective on that. Okay, all right, let's even model some medium white and some white together with some of this to create some of the different blues that we'll find. And change it up a bit, maybe even a little bit of the orange in there. See how it makes a different tone, see? Slightly different tone here. And that's our job. Our job is to create these areas of interest. Small marks here. Okay, come in like that. Let's pick up maybe a bit more blue, maybe some of this violet here. Let's mark this down this way so it's a little different here. And see, I want to leave some of this marks in here. This is what's going to give the interest. Just leave, push and leave, tap, leave some of that interest right into there, you know, on his wing. Okay, let's take, maybe thin this out a little extender. You can thin it with a little water, and just lightly go here, which is going to go into the white area. Maybe just a bit of that right into there. And then I'm going to add a little water or something, just thin it way out. And let's whisper a bit of that right back here as a nice undertone for where some of our whites are going to go on him as well. I'm constantly, you know, searching through the bird for undertones, colors underneath that I perceive. Like you could have a real light area, but underneath you'll pick out some whites, some oranges, some blues, sometimes greens, different colors. Like right up underneath his chin here, just slightly more of a warmer yellow with some of that. So I'll push some of that in, and I see some of that yellow oxide here, down on the front of his big legs here. So I'll push that in as an undertone, and then when I come put my light tones on top of it, some of that will poke or peek through and we can see it. Okay. All right. Now, so I got a good deal of undertone in there. I'm going to go to a smaller brush here, and I'm going to start painting a little bit of detail on him, which I always use this rest on my hand when I'm stepping back at the easel to do little details and stuff like that. And so let's start in there with his eye. Now his eye is going to be a real dark color, but first, before I do that, I like to take some burnt sienna. Now this is a little #2 Fusion filbert. And I use it sometimes on bird portraits and animal portraits and stuff, because it gives it. I don't like to. I have the rounds and I'll use the rounds, but I like the filbert because it's not quite perfect, and I can use the flat or I can rise up and touch it into its chisel, and get a different kind of a mark. I'm always kind of changing my brush mark so I don't get repetitive whenever I do something like this. So let's take a little darker color. Let's push that a little darker blue. Let's push that right to the front. So I have a little burnt sienna in the back, a little blue right up into the front. Those of you who paint the wildlife with you, now it's hard for the cameras to pick that up, but you'll pick up some changes into his color, which it makes him fantastic. Let's get a nice bright orange, which means I'm going to rinse that brush real quick. Let's take some Naphthol Red Light here. Bit of our Diarylide, bit of the Hansa here, and get a little water coming out of it. And let's just brighten this up to a brighter orange, which comes right here, a mark of it right down in front of his eye. Now I like to have models, so I'll touch a little bit of that red and stuff here, and touch some of that color, so the color doesn't just come out as one color. It kind of, when it comes out, you can get some different colors with it. That's what I like. And then I'll mix it up again, slightly different here. Let's bring some of that right up in here. And see how it's got a little red edge to it and a little light edge of orange? That's what I like. And that's why I do what I call model. Sometimes I mix, like if I'm into the background, but sometimes I model where I just tap the colors together, so that as I'm applying the color, I get different bits of the color coming out, and that automatically does a lot of the painting for you right there. Let's take some of that. Let's just model a little darker here and push a bit of that right up underneath there, so we get two little lines of that. Okay, that works pretty good. Maybe a touch more reddish here. Just a bit more for his mouth. I'm watching his mouth. Real light yellow, some white here. Maybe just a touch of that orange in here. Real light, because this is the light side of him. So right where the apex of his beak, where his face is kind of foreshortened here, the apex of his beak. The light side's going to be over there, so we'll hit that with some light. Then I'll look for a couple of areas I might be able to carry some of that light color down. And where could I, touch some of that light through the bird, just lightly like this. See how it just kind of travels the tone? That's what makes the birds pretty. And this is what really makes, when you're a professional, painter, what we tend to do is we tend to travel our colors for harmony. So I'm going to push some of it back and around. And so you don't only just pick up that color there, you start seeing it through the bird here. And so you look for areas to put it in. And sometimes those areas aren't there, and sometimes as an artist we add them, into an area because it does a better job of working tones. And I just saw a little bit of the orange right up there on the wing, and so I'm just going to add that so I don't forget that. Okay, so with this light color, let's go back up over here to our whites, some of our medium whites, and a little bit of our blues because his lights on his head slightly blue. We'll work this a few values, a few colors here. So let's find his calligraphy, pulling down here, pulling up and down and around that corner. Now we'll have to redo some of those blues again. Those darker blues. Let's pick up some light, which is hitting right up here into the front of him. We'll just put a nice strike of that light. This is because light's coming from the left side, so it's hitting that side of him really quite harsh there. Let's take a bit of that blue, pull that right around here, following some of that calligraphy of his head. Model that with the lights, so I'll work it a couple times, lights and darks here, working through his head. Now I'm going to want his head to pop off a little bit more because I can't feel I can get enough light for that to pop off. So how do I do that? Which means I'm going to make sure he's very dark here so I can darken my landscape just a bit right there around his head. I'll show you guys that. We'll get there. Let's I want to take just a bit of this darker blue right here and hit a bit more of that line there. We'll add a bit of the light up along, like most birds of prey, they have a real sharp line above the brow. The eye socket area sits quite high, so we can start building that on him here. And let's ping in a little more light right down here. So I'll do this light and blue several times on him there. And build the paint. The amount of paint you use is going to be very important. So we'll build a little more paint right up in there as well. And then we'll slide into some of our other colors. We'll get this. There's beautiful colors that can come from the oranges and the blues and some of those grays that we get, and we just model those together right in here, see, and let those color tones kind of come together because that's what happens in his face right in there. There's another one leaning slightly blue and light right in here. And so you carry the dirty brush, those dirty colors there. Let's go more towards a white right out here, and we'll hit some of those light areas here. So it starts to put some of the colors into his beak there. Let's get the blues, that violet and a little bit of that green, violet and green, real dark, almost black. And he's a bird of prey, so he has out here by his beak kind of goes to a point or hook. So let's get some of that in, okay? And slightly different color, maybe a bit of blue, a little bit of light with that. Just ever so slightly different underneath, just a little mark of it. So the top part of the beak is quite a bit darker. And then underneath you'll see some of those oranges and those blues come together again. So I leave the dirty brush and I just pick up some oranges here. And what I'm going to do is first touch it lightly so the orange comes off. And then the more I push, the blue starts to come off. But that'll get some definition, some color changes in there. Maybe a bit of burnt sienna And some of that blue is really pretty. Let's get some of that. And that would help like the division of his mouth line here. So you see his mouth coming back like that, okay? And that's pretty good there. And you can, you know, like on the original, what I see there, especially in the monitor, you'll see all kinds of, in the photo you don't see it, but in the monitor you can see a lot more colors in the monitor. You know, we might brighten a little bit orange. So let's go back. Let's first get that blue out of there. If we want to hit that nice brighter orange, get that blue out of your brush, rinse it out. Let's go back a little Diarylide, a little Hansa here. We got this brighter orange here. It's a little thin because I have a bit of water in it. And let's just build that up. If that goes in too much there, we have to let that dry up. One thing I love about acrylics, I'd let it dry up. When I used to paint with oils, I'd have to try to figure out a way to work that in there. But with the acrylics, I just let it dry. So I'm going to let that dry for a minute. We'll come back and revisit it. Let's take a bit of the burnt sienna. He has a couple of spots right up through there. We'll grab some of that. Grab some of this other darker kind of area there. A bit of our dark right down in here. I'm just watching I just glance up. I just take real quick glances up at my monitor there to see, and then I tack it now. And I don't try to, as I'm working details like this, I don't try to copy it precisely, but I just like little taps of color, and I'm looking for the interest that's going to come, especially around his eye there. Okay. We need to get a little lighter blue, so I'll take some white and the light. Let's get some of that feathery stroke that's going to come this way and out this way on him, like this. Okay, and maybe some more blue grade kind of color here up along the top. Tap along that eye there, right along that eye ring there. And that eye ring can be, let's rinse that color out. That eye ring can be brought out a little bit more orange. So let's just grab a tiny bit of red, get rid of and find my nice little dry spot here that I can make a nice bright orange here. And those of you that have Paranol orange, this is where I would grab it on this bird. You know, if you have the Heritage Color Paranol orange, it would be perfect right in here. Not, we'll just make an orange here. We'll drop that right down in there. See, it's slightly yellow this time, and that's great. Gives you a, you know, the small color changes that'll happen. Now I'll pick it up a little bit more red. The small color changes that you work in there is what's going to give your bird so much interest. Okay, let's try to get that orange right back up here on top of that beak again, and just a touch more red. So, you know, I'll take a mark and then I'll change it and take the mark again, you know, change the color a bit, but I like that modeling there, so you get some different colors there. And some of that color coming down. That looks good. Let's get that. That's kind of dried up there a bit, so let's get a brighter little yellow orange. Right there. That's good. Right there. No, that's kind of hard to see sometimes with the monitor. Can't pick up all the subtle little changes, but it does make a difference. I'm just going to take some of this light color that I used over there and just work that in. And see, I'll let some of that light. Now see, this is where you get that pretty modeling of some of those colors. And sometimes it takes a few times. Like I'll go back, and this is where you could start adding open medium if you want to get that thicker feeling. You know, start adding that open medium, which really does a great thing, especially works great on, you know, the birds and feathering and stuff. It holds a little more body to the paint. And let's go a little bit lighter with some of that open medium and some blue here. Model that together here, through like this, through, okay, and we'll pick up a bit more blue right in there, slightly different. You could take artist license and keep the top of his head here a little darker which would help him advance off of that, you know, lighter background into the back there as well. So that's another thing that we could do here. You know, there's a lot of detail. You know, when I'm looking at him on the monitor, I see a lot of detail that, you know, I'm not sure that I want to add into the painting. You know, well, it just takes a lot of time. We can add it in there. It just takes a lot of time to do that. Let's go from that smaller one there, and we'll go back up to find my absolute perfect brush here. This is my little number 4. This is a 4 flat, and I like it for feathering and stuff away from the head. The first brush out away from the head works great. And sometimes in the bird challenge, you'll see me paint the entire bird with a number 4 flat. So I'm going to take some light, model it here with some of these blues and some of these grays here. And we'll pull down here, just like this, and and what I'm going to do is some quick strikes here to start some of the feathering look here. See, you know, I'll just do a quick, so here I'm using the chisel, and I'll pull back like that there, and maybe a quick strike right up here by this edge, which will help me feather there. And if I take out too much, then I just go back to a little bit of my dark, and so you'll see me push and pull back and forth like this with lights and darks, and see, this starts to get your feathering to him. So I will even touch the chisel and pull back or lift off the other way. I generally will not do too many strokes before I redress the brush, because what will happen is you'll travel color, and then it starts to diminish actually the look that you get, you know, to that feathering. So here I'm taking just some violets and stuff, and I'm just going to restate some of these darks here, right up like that. Some of these blue darks here. A bit of this right up there towards his eye. Some of that dark. Okay. I'll pinch wipe my brush here. Get some of that moisture and stuff out of it. This is when you're feathering. Some of this open medium is great as well. And I'll just pull some of this through like that, hitting that wet edge a bit. There. Let's grab a little bit of the medium color here. Pull that through. Here. Light colors will change here. So like, you know, a little touch of the light here. And see what happens? I stroked it a second time and I had picked up blue, you know, and which is okay because I can, you know, fix that. But just remember, it's, you know, when I do a lot of the feathering, I like to do one strike with it. So like right into here, I'll do a strike, and then I'm going to redress my brush, pick up some other color here, and strike. And, you know, sometimes I might soften the edge a bit, but you strike again, and as you're picking up these colors, you see, and that gives you pure strikes. And you may want to strike, but what happens is you start to carry the color back and forth. So when you really want to get a lot of feather, now if I want to soften it out, work it down, then I can work this down. Here's the chisel of the brush working down. And I can do it down in here really easy because this area is dry. So you get different looks by having dry paint and wet paint, and, you know, feathering into wet paint or feathering into dry paint. You can get some different looks and stuff, which are quite nice. Let's take a little medium white. Just drop that in here. See the tones. That's what I'm looking for. Is all these tones that are going to come into him here. And a lot of them. There's going to be a lot of them. Let's pick up some thicker white right in here. Grab some of that color there. So if I'm working with the light and dark, I like to do it once. If my tones are real close, you can touch them a couple times. It won't hurt. Here, let's get just a touch blue here with some of this. And work that in. And then again, like I said, sometimes I'll work with the round. I have a feathering brush. I like the number 4 round. And I'll work that as well. Let's get us a nice soft orange here, slightly different. So I'll add some yellow oxide to it this time, some light here, touch more red to it. Don't overmix it too much. Maybe a bit of this blue into here as well, and we'll work some of that light. Now see, just leave that little feathering there, see? Leave some of that interest there. As I come up here, I might add a bit more light right there and feather that in, a bit of light there, so that color crosses there. That's kind of a pretty color. I'll take that light, let's pull that right down the front edge of him there, and we'll leave it a bit darker back down here on that other one we did. Work that back in there. So I like the chisel. I like to use the flat for a big flat area, or the chisel. Let's put a light strike right back down here. And see, leave some of these brush marks. That's what's going to really give him a lot of interest. And sometimes you think, oh wow, one stroke is great, and you know, let's take another one, and you'll end up screwing it up. You'll lose the power by taking that next stroke. So don't do it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to do it. I know. So we're going to do that here. And I'm just going to work some of these soft colors here up like this. Okay, and work through that, and I'll end up feathering like this with him, like this, you know, 3 or 4 times, building it up, because I want to build up these textures here. Okay, so you'll see me like feather through a little more orange this time, coming through and working through that area there with some more orange. And then I might even, you know, go back here to some of my small brush, pick up just little edges of like these oranges and lights and stuff. And this is where I come in, and I'll maybe add some small little marks just like that of those colors to bring in a little more interest. Maybe a touch of blue. While that's wet, I'll take one stroke down with a touch of blue just to push that color into place. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to work this through here a couple of times. I'll show you some video clips of it along the way. This is what I'm going to do, is I'm going to feather it up. I'm going to take about 20-30 minutes here and work on some of the detail, feathering him up like that. That's just what I do, these colors. Working it again and again and again, building some more color. Then we'll come back and I'll show you how to place him further into the landscape, okay? So I'll be back in a couple minutes and we'll take a couple little clips, okay? All right, see you then. Hi everyone, welcome back. Okay, so I went through and you saw me use like a little bit of the detail, just a little bit on him, but you can really see how that pops him forward, especially back there, camera one. And I just lightly based in a little gray, little movement here, some of the darker colors, light colors, and you basically layer those several times. And I like to use the point of the round in just tiny little taps. I don't like to get it too liney, too detailed, because I like the painterly look that comes from layering the colors. Now, let's come in, and you can see my palette here. Here's the little post that I just started to paint. But let's come in and let's take some of that post color. Let's take a little water, some of the violets and stuff that we had here. And we're going to start to look for, we can put a touch more contrast right up into here. And this is where I negative paint in and out like this, up and around him to pop him as far forward as I want. So you can see right there that helps pop him forward a little bit more. Then what I do is I just thin that color out. We make it more atmospheric. You could actually make it lighter here. And as you come back through here, tap in and around, and get some of your linear perspective here. We'll go through and do a little bit more, but you can really see this is one thing that I think it is so vitally important. And you see, I did a course called S101, which was the art of painting birds and putting them in different conditions and stuff. But one of the things that I highly recommend is to negative paint around to pop your subject back up what you want. Now let's take it a bit lighter back through here. It really helps, but what you have to be thinking about here too when you do this is the colors of your landscape here. So you have to kind of incorporate those. And like I showed you with the very first technique, taking a little water and helping incorporate that into the back here. So put some of these colors on, and even though some of these are dry, you take some water and incorporate those and it will work. But you get a lot of interest, and what it does is allows you to negative paint up against your bird and really pop him forward. So now you look at that and you're just like, wow, that really does pop him quite a bit forward. And then I'll come back up. Let's lighten up the sky. Let's put just a bit more, maybe blue into that. But keep this very grayed. I wanted this to be a little bit of a gray today here with this. We'll lighten back up through the sky. You could, put blues and clouds like you've seen me do in so many other times, but and allow a little bit of blue to come through there. But that's up to you. That's artist's choice. I'll work this a couple times. This is when I'm doing impressionism. This is really what I like to do. Some people say, okay, impressionism. No, it's not like pure impressionism. It's almost what we call representationalism. It's like you're painting something that represents something, but with a real impressionistic edge to it. So, I have some more recognizable things than just pure impressionism. But I'm going to model some colors here. We'll thin some of this out. We'll get some of the violets that I have here. Thin it way out, lighten it up. Work these colors, work these hill lines here again so they can come just a touch more interest to them. Back here, some of these colors, because I darkened up the bird there, so I could push a bit more in there. And in the reference photo, those of you that are part of membership, in the reference photo that I set up here, you'll see a lot of hill movement here, and I'm not necessarily going to add that because it might be distracting from the bird. But what I'll do is I'll just slowly start to add some more colors like this, using my hand to move that out. Small movements like that. See, that just adds a little bit more hill movement interest. Thin, really thin colors. Grab some of these atmospheric looks to these. Just kind of, but small movements help with that linear. Get some of that linear through. Thinking that you're dark, when you're working darker colors, you're working with it on the, on the shadow side, which is the right side here. And push, lighten that just a bit. See how it just creates a bit of the light dark here. Your movements there. A bit of that interest back there. Okay. You got to imagine there's a rolling hills, the rolling hills of the prairie here, and stuff going on. Right up, get some of that color right up against him, because that's going to advance him. That's going to look great up against him. And then we'll put some more right up into the front up here as well. You see, we'll get some of these darks in here. I just started to sketch in his legs and stuff here. See, I like that kind of movement there. That's kind of what I'm looking for. We'll push some of these grays, and then we'll go back to some of our burnt siennas and stuff to get some of that that prairie look. And we can create, now let's just say that you want to take a completely different color. Let's take some Phthalo Blue and some white here, really light. So if you want, because you can carry some of those colors of him, maybe a touch more of the violet in there would be nice too. But let's just push a little bit of that. This is all artist choice now. See, I'm just going to show you guys some things that you can do. Pushing some of that blue, when you look at that, see, that gives it a little bit more of a landscape, a little bit more interest. Let's take the soft gray and some white here and push in maybe the look of a couple of clouds, just side. And this is the nice thing about this, you don't have to be perfect. Just move the color around. See, just move that color real quick. You let what happens happen. This is the fun part about it. You let what happens happen. Now you can slow down, put a lot more thought into it, than what I'm doing right here. Well, I have a lot of thought in it, but you can put a little bit more energy into precision and building beautiful clouds or something like that. But or you can just do like this, and because the main subject is here. See. This is all back here is just extra interest, and that's whether or not you put it back there is up to you. I like that kind of just real casual kind of stuff, but that takes a lot of practice and bravery. Let's put it that way. You have to be brave. Let's just streak a bit of this right down like that. See, I picked up a bit of that brown in there too. Nice linear perspective. Even in your sky, you can get some of that. Pull some of that down a little bit. Maybe it's a nice wispy little day here. Take a paper towel, put just a bit of water into it. See how I can pull that down? Make that kind of whispery little look to those. And if you want to warm the hills, warm the back hills there, or just take some of this thin sky, mix it with some of the gray of those hills, and this will help you with your atmospherics of setting some of that further back there too. So you can scrub it just a bit there, and that just gives you the impression of it going further back. So you have some nice rolling hills. And then as we come up front here, where we're going to have our bird, this is where we'll start to work in more colors. And I will work this, generally when I do this, several times. But this is going to be just a real quick painting. We're just going to quickly put in some verticals here for the ideas of the grasses, and then let it get smaller and smaller and smaller. So what I'll do is I'll take just a bit of this and push it back here, and just basically let it just kind of dry brush, or what we call scumble, over the surface here, creating some highs and lows of the hills there as it goes back. You can use some open medium here, which causes it to be a little thicker and a little sticky, gives you a different look. You can thin it down with water. Each time's going to give you a little different look. Make sure you wipe some of it with your paper towel. So back here, we'll get a bit of the golden color. See that open medium? I have a bit of it here. Causes it to slide as well, but also gives a transparency or translucency to it. Let's put just a bit of golden color up on those hills there. See, and that's where you get that overriding color. We've done it several times now, and it's going to give this difference here. If it gets too heavy, just wipe it with the paper towel, and it'll push it right into the place there, see? So, but we can get a little bit more around him, where our subject and stuff here, we can get a bit more color that we want to see, and see, we'll let all the other areas. So as I go back here, I'll get a little smaller, because this is linear, right? A little smaller. But up here in the front, we'll grab a little heavier. Here, longer blades of grass. You could even put some nice big grasses and stuff up here. We'll also work in some of our burnt siennas, maybe burnt siennas and greens. When I paint like westerns and stuff, I do these kinds of techniques like this over and over and over again, several times building it. I don't think we'll do it here with him, but that's what I do, is I'll build that. Now I'm gonna take a bit of these colors right into that post, and you do that. For the longest time, that was hard for me as an artist, crossing colors like that, because I felt, you got to keep clean areas. No, you want to cross some of those colors so that you get some harmony. So, and it's a crossing of the edges, and that's what keeps some of this representational impressionism kind of look to it. Let's get a little lighter. This is just pure fun. You have some fun with it, and work some of these colors out. Try to get rid of little light edges. Like there's a few light edges right around him there. Maybe we'll gray that up a bit and push that right through like that. There, pull some of that off. Blur some of that off, so you see that. So you got a nice variety of color, and if you really want to, pull more of a landscape, maybe you turn this into a hill here that has some light color, like right here coming up onto the hill. Across the top of the hill, it heads over into some shadow right there. Maybe a bit lighter, bit more yellow right up here on the top here. Let some of those colors cross. Leave a few streaks here. There, like that. You can make some rolling hills here. Maybe there's going to be one right there. Idea of one coming right up by him. Little grasses. Just fun impressionism of it. Don't get carried away too much. Just some ideas. Let's put some of this back here. I like to do some flat, almost plain areas too, because that breaks up your landscape, gives it a different look. Rolling hills into some flat, plain areas there. Some light there. Go. But the most important thing, you see, as I manipulate all that, the most important thing is you see this guy, he just really comes up, there into the front. Let's get just a bit more of our burnt siennas, some greens here. We can really get some of that back down in here, right around where we want the viewer to go. We'll keep these darker colors right in there. You see, and so this is an artist's choice. It's, you can look at the reference photo, you won't see that. You'll see the color basically all the way around it. But, you've got to look at it through an artistic eye, as I'm going to fade it away here as I get away from my center of interest. So, yeah, we'll put some of this in and around him like this, and then we fade it away from side to side so your eye focuses in like this. So maybe I'll take a bit softer, but a bit of it can come in right here, right in there. Work those colors. Move some horizontals and some verticals there. Here, soften some of it out. And build, the next step is to build it. Now, if you come out here and you want to soften it, that's the beautiful thing about Heritage. You want to soften it, just take a damp paper towel here and just pull through it, see? And, you know, you'll, even though that area is starting to dry up and everything, this will soften that out. And now we're pulling the viewer's eye further right into here where we want to have, you know, right around that post and some of the color and stuff in here, and letting everything else fade away further out there into the back. So, yeah, let's take, I'll look for little places that I might have, that I might be able to sneak in a little different look or angle there. But I'm not painting perfect prairie back here, because what, you know, you want to paint the impression of it, because what can happen really easy is that you start competing against your subject, and I don't want to do that. So we'll just push a bit of the shadow there, a bit of the light and shadow right in there, a bit of the light and shadow here, and then as I come forward here, now how much are you going to do around there? You know, you may, as you build, like if those of you that, if you haven't watched the Western, you need to go watch the Western for how I build some of those front grasses and stuff. And so sometimes, you know, I have different things, different brushes that build front grasses. I like this, and I leave paint in it so it gets, you know, really hard and stiff, and it's like, you know, it does great little grasses like this, you know, so I can do some long ones, some short ones, and I can push grass in and around like that to get some of these looks of grasses. Of course, you do different colors, get different colors in there, different tones, and you just rub it up and down like this. This is another one that I like that does it a bit softer, and it's just basically it was one of our big rounds, bristle brush rounds, and I hammered it flat, and then I cut a little bit of it off here and there. But this will give you, some of this will give you some of the look of these grasses and stuff. So, and I just take this and I rub this with different colors coming through here, and it works really great. So I'm going to do this for just a few minutes. I'm going to put in a few grasses and we'll come back and we'll finish it up. I'll show you just a few simple things to do on that front post, maybe his foot, take a last look at him and our landscape in general, and see what it is that we might want to finish him up with. Okay, so give me just a couple minutes. I'm just going to do this. Okay, yeah, push those on there, and then we'll come back and take a look. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so I just pushed that around, and you can see, and what I really like about it being a little stiff is that you get some of these scratches and stuff in it that work really well. Now, we'll just come back and we'll just make some beautiful grays. Some of it, you see me do it with blues, burnt siennas, greens, and reds. They all make beautiful kind of gray colors here. And I'm going to paint it probably with just a little bit of texture and stuff here, and I'll just build it up slowly, lighter and lighter here, sliding some of these colors, and keep it as simple as possible, but a little bit more detail to it, because it does pull in. So, you know, I'll put some textures in, just run your brush. I love the painting the fusion like this, that just kind of drags that brush. So you see here, I keep it modeled on my palette here, and you know, there'll be a great place there for him to put his leg there. Just drop that in like that. Shadows, you can go with some blues, darker blues, and burnt siennas here to put in some shadow areas here on this old post here, and maybe tap some of that here onto the shadow side. So we create a shadow side, light and shadow side of it here, because you do have, you know, the light hitting on here, and that's you know, something to consider. You know, always, you know, your light source. Always consider it in everything you do. We're artists. We paint the light, and so a little knot hole here, which I thought was really neat, but I was worried that it might take away from it a bit, but doesn't do it too much on this reference photo, so might make it out okay. We just do a little spinning around here like this and model some of that. You know, let the fusion brush just drag over the surface there, and it gives you a really nice, you know, quick, very quick impression of the post here. You know, just don't do too much, don't stroke too many times. Change the position and stuff of your brush here. Let's just grab a little bit more light. Just grab some of this texture to lay the brush down. Maybe a bit of blue over here into this color here, because it's going over to the shadow side. Just a bit of that edge. Let's grab some more light right down this edge here, because that's the light side of it. Reset your brush. Don't stroke too long, you know, and use the side of your brush here to get some different angles. And sometimes I'll put on too much and then just grab a nice gray, tap through a bit to take some of that out, and you start to paint yourself. I mean, it's an impressionistic one, but it's not a bad one, especially if you get way back. It's not too bad, but it's quick. That's the big thing too, is, you know, when I was a realist in painting, I would spend hours and hours doing it, and I loved it. I loved those years, but you know, you might as well have a photo of it. I love the painting. I love textures now, and you know, and trying to capture an image like an alla prima painter as simplistically as possible. It's a nice challenge, and I love that. But toss in some more burnt siennas and blues here. Get some other colors going in there, and get this nice little bit. See, just keep it kind of simplistic there. He's sitting on a little post, and then we'll, you know, I don't always like, you know, I know the birds of prey, they have these big, massive feet. Most birds have oversized feet. And I don't always try to render them precisely, because I think they can be a bit distracting. But so far I've got him pretty simplistic, and I just might, I mean, I'm going to build him up a little bit more, but not quite as much as probably you see in the reference photo. But I'll build this up, maybe just a touch more light, and I'm just going to keep it simplistic like this. Cut, touch more light edge there, so you got a good light and shadow of it, you know, for the bark here and stuff. So that's just a real quick reference to it. We'll go back to smaller brush, maybe my little number 6 or a 4 here, and we'll take a soft orange, a little bit of light here, push that back in. I did drop in his legs a little earlier here, and he shows up, you know, on the sample photo there. The photo that I really, you know, I got him that I purchased to use in this painting, he's holding a mouse to it, and I thought, no, you know, which is very, very true. You know, I had a shrike out here that I got a beautiful picture of, a shrike out here just not too far from my house, and a northern shrike, and he had just captured a mouse, and it was a great picture, but you know, I don't know how many people would appreciate the dead mouse there, so I got rid of him. But if you like it, you know, you can find them with all kinds of you know, their little lunch in their talons, and you can add that. I think it would add something to it, but sellability of it might go down too. You know, I don't know. You know, I don't know. How many of you, leave a comment, how many of you say do the mouse? If you want, we can always drop a mouse in there. How many say do the mouse? Let me know in the comments down there. It'd be fun to know how many people. It would be a fun thing if everyone commented there to say, okay, do the mouse, don't do the mouse. You know, see how many people vote for the mouse. But Then we'll just drop in some of his, the idea of his legs. I'm going to keep this very simplistic here. Of course, I have no sketch left, so I'm just going to, they'll have one talon that drops back, a couple that drop down, a long one there, here. Just kind of fun, keep this very, very simplistic here. We'll take, and I'll do like the burnt sienna. It's a great little shadow underneath here to do a lot of your work for you. Just let that burnt sienna do the shadowing work and the idea of it, and keep it simplistic here. And then one of the things I will do though is I'll give him a sharp little claw, because that does cause him to stand out a bit more. So that one actually goes back. This will actually come down. So you're going to adjust him. Just use the color of the little stump. Kind of a fun painting though. Kind of a, fun, kind of pretty. And, I was thinking, yeah, you have the stump there. It might be nice to do like a little fence line or something like that. Depending upon, how much, you're going to pull into your, how much detail, time, and energy, you're going to, put into your painting. It's yours. Let's take a small brush here, make a dark color, blues, burnt siennas and stuff, and put in the idea of his little claws, and then we can come in and do some highlights and some other fun little things there, and just the idea. And this is the beautiful thing about in painting, impressionism and stuff, and the lost edges. I love this. You don't try to you don't try to capture it completely and perfectly. You have some fun with it there. And let's take some of that burnt sienna, just a little bit there. So you leave that edge, and if you start your painting out with it very impressionistic, the viewer will pick up on that and leave that. But if you start getting any area a little too precise, a little too perfect, then you might as well, settle down for a long painting, because you're going to have to do some more odds and it's perfect. Because Impressionism works well with, or what we would call representational painting works well with representational painting. But, getting one area super precise and then one area casual and relaxed doesn't really work together. I feel. But, so we'll get a bit of that in there, those nice big claws. Let's take a bit of blue, some of my grays here. Push this back. See, I can push that, the gray here of the stump or the little post, the tree stump or post, it's more like a post, back. We see them out here, though. I see them out here, out into the prairie, sitting on the fence posts and stuff. All kinds of hawks. We have so many different varieties of hawks and birds and prey and peregrine falcons and stuff. It's just beautiful. Let's take a bit of this, thin this leg up a bit, and get a bit of that yellow in there. So you can negative paint, and I do it a lot. And when you're keeping a casual edge to your painting, guys, like this is a casual edge. It's very easy to come in here and just negative paint to blur edges or cause something to recede a little bit, or if something's not quite so perfect, just blur it out. It's, sometimes, when you're an artist, you can get wrapped up in doing little details and they really throw you. And really what you do is you just do an impressionistic edge. You don't worry about it. Do the impressionistic edge and soften out the look. Because when you step back, see what that looks like. Step back there like that. It looks pretty good. And, you know, carrying some, making sure you get some of those burnt sienna colors in here. You know, I might want to put some lighter yellows, even though he doesn't really have too much of them, but a few of it, to carry some of those colors, or carry some of his colors down into here. Adding some blue, like taking some of the blue. Now you start, I'm talking about harmony now, right? So taking some of the blue that I have here, some of the blue that we used in him, maybe a touch of the violet stuff into that. Maybe not quite that blue, so just a bit more burnt sienna into it. But touching that, see, that's a beautiful blue that comes in on the shadow side and carries his tone further down into this this stump right down here. You know, so you use it. There's the afternoon train. I love that. So, you know, you can use it as a light, as a that blue as kind of a reflected light over here, maybe a touch more violet. So as I come up and I'm starting to finish the painting, I start looking for harmony, pulling some of these colors together. Here's a bit of that lighter blue and violet that appears over on him on that one side, see? And it picks up, and basically you're seeing some of the colors that are on him. You know, we can just put a bit of that. And you can put touches of those colors and stuff out in through here to, you know, just, I mean, to carry color. Or do like I do, is I'll put it on there and I'll go, okay, that's just a little bit heavy. You always have your towel and your water. It's a great technique. And just see, now look what happens. See, it softens it all out. And you just very subtly pick up that little tone there. And that's a great thing to do for harmony, okay? Because harmony is very important to your painting. And so we always got to keep that in mind. Let's bring that light back up on that just a bit more. And just a bit onto that nice little idea of a knot hole there is pretty neat. So there you go. This, and I would probably do just a little bit more, maybe you know, here onto his foot. You might want to take a bit of the blue and the burnt sienna as a nice little shadow, and, you know, darker than what the reference photo does show. But you can do a little bit more cleanup of the line, fixing up the line here onto his foot. Like this back one, if you're going to set something back, you know, you can set this one back a little bit more shadow, you know, there on that. But yeah, just, or you can slow down, be precise, grab your round brush, you know, and do a little detail. Just remember, you know, if you start coming in here, you know, if I start coming in and bringing this up, let's bring in a highlight, let's bring in the light here, and I start doing this, I start doing detail like this. Like if I want to come in, you know, they have little vein lines that come across them and stuff, but if I start doing too much of this, I can do a little bit here, but if I start doing too much, I start to take away from the detail that's there on him a little bit. You know, that's your decision. Always watch up against him. You know, he has in the reference photo, he's got a light shine that comes up through here. You can express that, a little bit of the light. I like to take, you know, just like I do on elk and stuff, a little bit of the blue and stuff, and create that little joint that's there between them. I do that on elk horns and stuff, but it gives you it's a very impressionistic, you know, look to it. And back through here, very impressionistic, just some ideas of that. But it's mostly about him, and it's about this, you know, post and bringing this stuff out so far forward. And like I say, if you want to create, you know, once you get to this point, now, you know, we can take some lighter and we can do some smaller here, just lighter, little heavier touches right around the post here of some of these grasses. And then don't go too far out, because we want the viewer right into here. Maybe cross over, you know, the post here a bit, like what will happen, and sink this post into the painting a little bit more. So some of these grasses here can pull up right up in front of it, but a little heavier right in here. This is all up to you. you know, and then let some of it fade out. Let's just put a little bit there. This is just a great brush. Let paint dry in it, and it just pushes stuff around really easy. Here, just like that, and you get some nice look to it. See, and it's pulling your eye right in here, and then going back. It's fun, okay? Different way. So you can take birds, any kinds of birds, and put them into, you know, landscapes. You know, do a half landscape, trees, maybe a little bit of water, put some birds in there. They're just great. But, you know, now that, you know, I've made some of that negative painting right up there, right up next to him, and done that, I could pop up, you know, just a little bit more. Maybe, let's just take this, a little edge of the white right here, and pop up some extra, you know, light. Maybe, and this is, you know, if you're wanting to get textures, which are fantastic, which are hard for a lot of painters to get in. It was hard for me for a long time, but that would be where you would touch some of that texture right in there, get some of those textured strokes, you know, maybe just a bit of that light. This is just an old brush. It has absolutely no chisel left on it. Just a touch of that light right up there like that. That just helps pop him forward. That's kind of enough of him, you know. So I let this whole area here fade away. I concentrated my color and my design right in through here, so it fades away and it fades away. And you know, when you do it real soft and faded like that, everyone will see different things in the clouds and into the back of the painting there. Okay, there you guys go. Have fun with it. I will put a final photo here. I'll put the reference photo that I used there and a photo of my original sketch into the members area. So those of you that are members of the channel, you can go there, download those. I have new videos coming to the members area. And here in just a couple of weeks, we're a week and a half or so, we're going to do some live classes. So those of you that are in the membership, watch the community page for our live classes. Those are coming. We're going to do a couple nights of them, of live classes. And, you know, I put out a post on the community page about, you know, what you'd like to see. I've had more people say rodeo, bronco in a rodeo or something like that, some kind of Western too. Movement of ocean and stuff, so how to make the waves and stuff. We'll look at some of that as well, okay? But if there's something you want to see, you can always comment. And, you know, if you ask questions right there into the comment, I try to get to them. I can't always get to every single one of them now, but I try to answer. If you look back to the videos, I try to answer all your comments. And that's me every morning sitting down talking to you. And I appreciate so much all of you, you know, joining me on the channel here, subscribing and watching the videos, and especially a special thank you to my membership that helps support it. We're being able to expand more, to concentrate on more videos, and show you more things with your support. Thank you ever so much. Okay, all right. With that, don't forget to click like. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. And members, I'll see you in the live classes coming up.